Hang on. Alrighty. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Estate Lab. We have a very full episode for you today, and we have so much information, and I feel like we also have a sprinkling of controversy. This is a topic that a lot of folks are talking about, and it could actually have a heavy impact on our economy as well as our real estate market. I think, as we know, Austin's housing market has taken a hit largely due to high prices, interest rates, and high property taxes. And today we're going to dive in and share our thoughts on how each presidential candidate and or their policies could affect our housing market. So let's take it away. Are either one of you just itching to share first?
Yeah, I have a little bit that I want to say in regards to just like the conversation as a whole. Um,
Mhm.
we started talking about this a little bit before we went live, but essentially, all data, not all, but most data is either skewed or biased or hidden in some kind like under headlines or something. And so we have to be careful saying like with the emotional attachment to the conversation that we're having. And the focus, what we want to focus on today is how does this impact Austin on a local level? Because the politics for the presidential candidate, I mean, that's national. We still
Mhm.
have a barrier or a buffer based on the state. And it doesn't matter how you feel about Governor Greg Abbott, for example, but the policies he put in place, let's say it's taxes, I'll use that as a quick hypothetical, are going to be different or adjusted based on whatever the national plan is, right? So these are the types of things that we want to talk through. And I'm pretty excited, but I also don't want to focus on the Dems or the Republicans. Like it's there's so many other things that are related to these topics, and it's not a one party conversation. It should be as unbiased as possible and as informational and informative as possible. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. JJ, how you feel, man?
Yeah, I think this is a very controversial topic. It can be, we need to be a little bit more objective. And this is an important decision, but I'm not, as a realtor, we're realtors here. We're not here to talk about foreign policy or women's rights
Yep.
or, any of that stuff. This is strictly like housing policies, usually around like taxes or something. So, you know, we're not here to talk about felonies and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah.
Just
Well, it's so interesting you bring that up because it's not to say that that's not important,
right.
but
It is
you have
important.
people like I'll use an example. I have friends that only just because of the gun control conversation, they will vote for one person or another. Just
Mhm.
because of that.
Which is
They
fine.
could care less about women's rights,
Right.
homelessness, taxes. And if the gun control isn't what they think it should be, they're going to vote one way or the other. I was like, but there's a lot more to it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So we do want to talk about the what's going to affect us as far as housing goes.
Housing.
That's the plan here.
Yeah.
So do we want to get started? Do you have a section that you want to get started on, Daphne?
There's a lot. I've got a lot of notes here.
Yeah.
I think taxes is something that probably affects everybody, whether it's on a national or a local level. And both candidates have, I would say, kind of, I'd almost say contrasting tax
I would go
policies.
with
I
that.
would
Yep.
I would say that.
Yep.
Yeah. Curious to see what y'all think and what you found and what you've heard.
Well, first, before we go into the topic itself, I want to say for those of you that haven't been here and watched our real estate lab show, a couple things. One, JJ, Daphne, and I are all multiple property owners and therefore investors in real estate. So we're also realtors, and we might not be biased, like, and our opinions are based on our experience in real estate. So don't try to take this as we're biased against any type of party. It's just we're real estate agents,
These are
and
real
that's the
things that,
topic.
yeah, these are real things and policies that could potentially affect us as investors and then affect our clients as there's some stuff about like first time home buyers and
Yes.
property owners, et cetera. So this is something that could really affect would say literally anybody who's looking to acquire or sell property or has appreciating property.
Yeah.
So
So JJ, I'm sorry, your mouth was open and I jumped in and started yapping.
No, I think I was just smiling because I just like the fact that we're isolating the real estate policies. Because in the field, you hear real estate policy. Like, we're not looking at tax policies and someone's bringing up the control. It's just, this is,
we could. No, I'm just kidding.
right?
Let's do that.
So, were you going somewhere with it, Daphne? Because they are polarizing. You want to
I just
start with the
put that out
candidate?
there. Yeah, let's put it out there to start the conversation.
I would start with the what I hear is that things like a 1031 exchange
Yeah.
is beneficial, right? Even just with that particular element of real estate, you could, for those that don't know, a 1031 exchange is the ability to uh, not pay capital gains taxes on your investment property. Is that how y'all would describe it?
Well, yeah,
By
because you're rolling
another
it into another property. You're continuing the legacy of the investment.
right.
So yeah, you're essentially not paying capital gains because you're rolling it over into the next year.
Right. And from what I'm seeing, the Biden Harris administration has been taking jabs at taking that advantageous element away, whereas the Trump campaign is saying that they'll keep that the same, if not increase its benefits. Is that what y'all are reading?
Mm-hmm.
It is that is one side of it, absolutely. So capital gain, or sorry, yeah, the capital gains, how capital gains affects us as investors. A lot of people, so like the majority of the country's wealth is in real estate. And a lot of people, once they've learned they can incorporate and start receiving tax benefits for investment properties, they're like, oh, I get it now. And then people start loving real estate as it being like a tool to leverage debt. And so these capital gains are part of that, or the forwarding of capital gains are part of that, because you don't have to pay all of this crazy amount of money. All the profit that you make, you're not giving it right back, you're continuing on. And we watched a video earlier about, if we have extra money to build up this portfolio, we need people to be able to support this portfolio. So now we're hiring and we're creating jobs as a result of that. So does that help the economy? That's really the question. The local economy, for investors to be able to continue using 1031 exchanges.
Do we know what the reason, or do we know or understand the reasons behind why the 1031 exchange would be removed, or I guess adjusted?
Yeah, I think so. But
Why do
JJ,
you think that is?
so my thought is, the government exists similar to a corporation, to not the reason it should exist, but how it exists today is similar to a corporation, and that corporation makes profit, and then they turn that into what they think is what they say should be better for the American people. Okay, so
Right.
the government more tax revenue if they remove 1031 exchange. That's the reason why. They'll make more tax revenue year over year, because a lot of people are deferring their taxes through this 1031 exchange tool.
Interesting.
And another way to look at it, I'm like dusting off my economics college classes. Taxes, tariffs, they're also put in place to incentivize certain things. So not so much, I don't know what they're going to do with taxing, like why they need to take it there. I'm not sure why the Democrats are looking at those policies, but for again, this is just in the real estate field. There's a lot of incentives to doing real estate. And besides the 1031 exchange, generally, I think there's other policies that the Trump administration is pro. It's like pro real estate almost, and a lot like pro real estate investor. Besides just the 1031 exchange, we could talk about different policies, but to me, it incentivizes people to take advantage of real estate. That's I'm kind of like answering the inverse of your question.
Yeah.
Well, so they're
Incentivized.
they're go ahead. Go ahead, Daphne.
But I don't know what the Dems are doing with it.
Well,
Leave a
kind of on
comment
the
if
top.
you know. I would love to find out.
I don't fully know either. It just a couple comments you guys made me think of something related. When we're talking about taxes and tax breaks, I read quite a bit that the Harris administration has. They're saying that they have anyway policies around homelessness and affordable housing, and they want to provide affordable. I'm going to use air quotes, affordable housing
Right.
for the homeless
Right.
and for those who need housing. Which I think saying it and the idea is really nice and it sounds exciting. And the reality is, where is this money coming from? Is it coming from the sky? Is it coming from taxpayers? Where is that really
Well,
being pulled from? Yeah, Ian,
think
go for it.
think about what we were saying with the 1031 exchange. So if you
Yeah,
want to be able to give $25,000, so I believe this is how the Harris campaign is touting it. They want to be able to give $25,000 grants to anyone who's looking to buy a home, regardless of immigration status, which will affect Austin long term, right? But the fact that they want to give this money to new home buyers sounds great. Like Stephanie
yes,
said, the money has to come from somewhere. So if they were to increase capital gains revenue, remove the 1031 exchange, that's one place the money will come from for them to be able to give out this grant. So it makes a lot of sense if they're focusing on giving away, but not focusing on how they're getting the money. And this is specifically like, I know this is a national conversation, but for Austin, we know that people need help buying their first home. We know in Austin need help buying their first home. And so, and we know that we have a lot of investors in Austin that own multiple properties. And so this is a very local issue or impact on Austin for sure. And that's just one of them. We haven't even talked about the uh, getting paid on unrealized capital
I
gains.
realize, yeah.
So that's more revenue that the government is making. So they'll make like 5 times the amount of money, and then they'll give a little piddly 25,000 to home buyers to kind of boost that feeling around that part of the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's three policies that kind of came up. One was the Democrats looking to provide more housing, let's say for the homeless, and then quickly, Ian, you went over the Harris's plan for $25,000 down payment support for first time home
Yep.
buyers.
Yep.
And then you also mentioned that, again, back to taxes on capital gains, the Trump administration is looking to not tax capital gains as much as the Harris administration.
And obviously, what they are saying, but
Yeah.
then we have what have they done in the past, right? And then we also have, this is one of those things that I don't want to pull it up now because we're having a good conversation on it, but I do have like what's their net worth and how much real estate do they own? To me, that's important
Yeah.
because you have to think they're very different people than the American person, the average American person. And so the way they think and the way they build their portfolio is going to be completely different.
Speaking of which, do you think probably, I mean, do you think that's what it is? Like Trump is like, I'm a real estate dude, so all these kind of make sense.
Yeah.
That's my world. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
Well,
speculating too much, but it's kind of there.
Can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
Ian, were you
please. That's what we want.
Yeah. So a few months ago, I saw this Instagram reel by a lender that I follow who puts out really good content. And I personally try to stay away from any content that says, politically speaking, that says, this is fact, the end. Like, I like to think I'm a very open person and I like to hear what everybody has to say, whether it's politics, religion, life experience, whatever. I think it's important to
100%.
take in so many points of views. And
Yeah.
this particular fellow had a Instagram reel. He's like, uh, he said Trump Trump would fix our real estate and our housing market. And immediately I was like, that's too black and white. Like, I want to hear more gray area. But it was actually a really good video. And he shared a bunch of reasons as to why. Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. Sorry. I lost my train of thought because JJ had said something that reminded me of this. And essentially, he said what Ian was just saying. Like, Trump is a real estate guy. Like, he built a lot of his wealth, whether he has it or not is debatable, through real estate. And at one point, he did help turn New York around just by fixing up neighborhoods in different big buildings that were sources of crime and were just causing a lot of issues. So I think that perspective is really interesting. Just the fact that he does have so much experience with that. And I need to organize my thoughts on this a little bit more. So bear with me. But during the pandemic, for instance, when everything shut down, we thought our economy was going to collapse. And though the president doesn't have a direct effect on the Fed and what the Fed ends up doing with interest rates, I think the fact that Trump was there maybe to push someone, I don't know who that someone is, but towards lowering interest rates, particularly in the housing market. I don't know. I wonder, I don't know, but I wonder if that had something to do with pushing a real estate market. I don't know if that made any sense.
Oh, well, that's a controversial topic in and of itself, because you got to think about when the pandemic actually start and when did the interest rates drop versus when was President Trump in office, right? Because he wasn't in office until 2020. Interest rates started dropping 2019, right? I believe the pandemic started in 2019. March of 2019, is that right?
2020.
So 2020. Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was, gosh, I was actually coming back to Austin from a wedding in Florida. I want to say it was in mid-March 2020. And that was right before everything closed down. And there was nobody in the airport. It was like us and like maybe a dozen other people. It was the weirdest thing. And they were playing, I don't know if it was CNN or whatever, but something on the TV saying interest rates have dropped to 0%.
Yes.
And then everything shut down like 2 days later. And that sort of snowballed throughout the rest of the year. So I don't want to take us too far off on a tangent.
It's not a tangent. I mean, we do want to talk about that. We want to get to that point. That's a really good one. Really good one.
Yeah. But even interest rates, I don't see, from what I'm researching, I don't see any direct policies for the interest rate per se. I see more on tax incentives and stuff like that.
Well, it's to Danny's point. The president didn't have a direct effect on the interest rates. It just was circumstantial, and probably, a bunch of people in the room that we don't know about were making a decision to influence the Fed to take some kind of action. And specifically during the pandemic, it was, we have no, like all the economists were like, we have no idea how to handle this because this hasn't happened in our history. Correct. And so they were making stuff up. We've heard of quantitative easing, which happened during, was it 9/11? Or no, the 2008 with President Barack Obama. And that's when the government started printing money and learning that they can print money to adjust the rates. And that has been happening ever since then. And so I think what happened during the pandemic is there was a lot of quantitative easing, and then it recently has been getting even worse. And there are plenty of charts to showcase that. But that's independent of, not independent, ancillary to the conversation. So I want to pull up the houses. We were talking about the houses themselves. So I'm going to pull up the houses and the real estate portfolio of each party, right? So Kamala Harris and husband own about $8 million in real estate, which is more than a lot of people in Austin, right? So they own a house, a 3,500 square foot house that they bought in California, in Brentwood. 2 years. So her husband bought it 2 years before they were married. And so now that's part of her real estate portfolio. So she didn't even buy that house. They may have been together and all that, but my point is, it wasn't necessarily her direct decision as an owner of real estate before they were married. And
Let me make this point too. While
right.
that's up, it says Harris's husband bought this because I'm going to make an appreciation point because there's a taxation little thing lying there. It says Harris's husband bought this 3,500 square foot house in 2012, and then they sold it 2 years later for 2.8 million. So there's bought it for 2.8 million. The house is now valued at 4.2. So that's
5.2.
5.2.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So a lot of wealth, real estate wealth, came from him buying property before they were married in an LLC, tax advantaged LLC.
I see where this is going. Yes.
Right?
That's appreciation.
We gotta take the emotion out of this. It has nothing to do with if a partnership is happening during the time and one person gets, like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the what happens on paper and how that impacts your taxes when you're purchasing a property and how that impacts your wealth generation. So they're leveraging this as a tool to build a moderate amount of wealth by today's standards. Okay.
Yes.
And then they also bought, probably with those proceeds, this is 2004, so this is before then, while she was a district attorney. So $500,000, she bought a condo in San Fran. Okay, so that's actually her before she was with her husband. So she bought a condo in San Francisco while she was a district attorney, ended up selling for almost $800,000. Okay, which is interesting. I saw this. The guy that did the design, the interior kitchen design, is known for designing rooms at a resort in Austin. I thought that was fun. So like an Austin designer or architect. So they own a condo in this building, 1,000 square foot in San Francisco. She bought another condo for $2 million. That's worth $2 million. I forget where this is. This is in DC area. And then they own the property in California, or owned. And they sold the property in California. Looks like they sold it.
So what have y'all been seeing in regards to the appreciation and capital gains taxes?
What do you mean?
Those were great examples of building net worth on holding on to real estate.
Well, I wanted to show this, and then I wanted to show Donald Trump's.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think seeing the difference of the people that are running is interesting, right? So first, Donald Trump doesn't tell people what he's worth. He doesn't fully disclose what he's paying in taxes, which is it's a right as a United States citizen, but also, when somebody's not telling you something, you're curious why. Okay. That's a privacy thing, right? So Bloomberg thinks he's worth $7 billion, up by 4.6, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you have all these worth. But then what's really important is the actual real estate breakdown, which is right here, real estate properties. So the claim is that it's $1 billion worth of real estate. Okay. Here's why this is interesting. Because, like you were saying, Daphne, in New York, if someone is tearing down a neighborhood of, let's say, dilapidated houses and turning it into high rises or something else, or making it apartment complexes, it is changing the landscape of the neighborhood, but does that make that more affordable for people to move in? I don't know.
Absolutely not New York.
Well, so we've seen the increase of everything in New York. And that's where a lot of former President Trump's real estate portfolio existed. A lot of it exists in New York. So if this was happening, how does that impact the local economy there? And how will that impact, Austin if that same thing happens here? We've seen that happening during the pandemic, where prices shot up because so many investors were able to buy properties at almost no interest rate and leverage that. So we see how it impacted Austin locally when investors have all of these, the ability to invest in a market like this.
I also saw a policy or some plan Trump mentioned about allowing more development and pushing opportunity zones.
Yes.
Did y'all see that?
Yeah. So
elaborate on that.
So an opportunity zone is usually an area that's not very economically well. Is that how y'all would describe opportunity zone?
Not economically well off?
Yeah, economically well off. And hence, he's incentivizing developers to go in there and kind of like what we're talking about, rebuild it, add business, update the properties. And if you invest in an opportunity zone, you get more incentives. Could be more tax breaks. It could be some form of incentives there.
I'm going to make a comment, and this will take that same conversation a lot deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Elon Musk built a factory in Del Valley?
Obviously.
Is it
Same thing, opportunity zone, right? It's swampland, low cost of living, low taxes and incentives, and then building up the area and hopefully developing the area. That we've had, that mud is, right? Or pit, sorry, that's what pit is. Like we have that here. We've had that here. This is very much it's been happening for a long time. So how do I feel about it? I don't know. Look at Rainy Street. How do you feel about Rainy Street?
Say that again one more time, Ian. It cut out.
I said, how do I feel about opportunity zone PIDs and someone in as an investor and revitalize an area? Look at East Austin. Look at Rainy Street. Look at Mueller. And those answers.
Yeah, the east side still has opportunity zone designation, which is the, it, like I said, wasn't economically well off in the past, and now they're like central business districts or whatnot.
Right. Now who benefits from that in Austin? Who benefits from it being a central business district locally?
This is a little bit on gentrification too. As sad as it is to get displaced from where you lived, those properties also appreciated. So I don't know if
but who could buy those properties? Let's start there. Who's able to buy those properties?
Well, it depends on where you get it on the way up, right? Like at some point,
could your person working as a teacher or a police officer or a firefighter buy a property in East Austin?
Here's an argument. They have, and they do own there.
Well, they did before.
Before
it was an opportunity zone.
Yeah.
And once it became an opportunity zone, they couldn't anymore.
Yes.
Okay. We gotta be clear. Like, no feelings.
Right.
This is the truth. This is what's happening.
But it is. The thing is, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think, Ian, who buys there today? It's people that are relocating to Austin that are coming for kind of high corporate positions with a lot of the IT companies that we have. Essentially, it's not usually people that have been living in Austin for years and work like a normal 9 to 5. No, that's not it. It's folks that are relocating for the most part. And they're moving to Austin and they're buying homes in those areas because they want to be in Austin. Those are words that I hear my clients say. I want to live in Austin, might as well be in a cool area in Austin where I'm close to everything and close to work. I think that's, a fairly reasonable thing to say and way to think. If you're
Yeah.
And now
I think
you
that's
have
what it is.
Meta that just left Austin, like they're leaving Austin, and you have other companies, manufacturing companies coming in, and then you have places like Amazon who just initiated a return to work 5 days a week.
Mhm.
How will that impact Austin local area, like greater Austin area, when people that lived in California or New York or wherever worked for Amazon, let's say remote, have now been put in a position where they have to come back or find a new job. That's what we're experiencing here in Austin. This is different than a lot of the other places in the country. That's why we're talking about this.
Totally.
And then all the people that have houses, all the people that bought these houses, and let's say somebody had a house in East Austin that they bought in 20, they probably paid $250,000, $350,000 for a house where all their neighbors are now worth, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, Property taxes likely went up. Their appraised value went up. And so if they were to sell their house, they might win. But if they didn't have a lot of equity or took out loans, or, maybe their kids are trying to buy in the same area, something like that, it's not possible the same way.
Right.
Because the costs have risen so much because of all of these investors that have developed in these opportunity zones.
So this is my notes on affordable housing and market influence. Trump, he's reducing regulations. He said he would open up federal land for large-scale development, allowing the market to determine housing prices. Whereas the Harris administration supports building, I think this is like quote unquote, 3 million new homes by the end of her term, and incentivizing affordable housing construction. And then there's that first-time home buyers and regulation behind the building. Like she's going to let development occur more rapidly, which I also find confusing because I think there's more state and city policy and permits on that one.
Absolutely, the answer right there.
Yeah.
Daphne, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it sounds, again, one of those things that sounds really nice to hear, but it's almost like a high school candidate running for, I don't know, student council that says like free lunch for everyone. Like, okay, that sounds great, but in reality, like, how's that going to happen? Yeah, definitely.
Vote for that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Not for free lunch. I think if you have some education around real estate, construction, understanding of costs, all the hands that are involved in the process, promising to build $3 million new homes may not be totally valid. Also, where are they going to be built? Like North Dakota? Because there's a lot of land there, but there's not necessarily a lot of land like San Francisco, right? So it's like there's a lot of obscurity with that statement, I feel like.
I also don't like the idea of like rushed building. I don't know. I think I already have issues with urban planning and some of the construction I see already. I feel like construction is just kind of dipping off.
So I tell a lot of my clients, the ones that want new construction homes, a lot of times, that building quality construction went down after 2015, 2016, because that's really when our housing market started popping off. You can see, I think, a pretty clear difference between a home that was built in 2014, let's say a higher end builder that was built in like 2014, 2015, and then that same builder today,
Right.
it's not the same house.
Yeah. And if anybody knows or can comment on knowing that policy also has better ramifications or what exactly that means, that would be great too. Because like Daphne said, what does that?
Yeah, what does that mean? Are there any comments, Ian?
No, I have the chat up. For some reason, there aren't any live comments, but we have plenty of stuff to talk about, and we can circle back around and even answer them in another episode.
I'm curious to see if anybody knows more about the statement about building the 3 million new homes.
So let me share what I think I know about how
Y'all like that policy in general?
About the building policy in general.
The building.
So if you say I'm going to build 300,000 more homes, what was it? 300,000.
3 million.
3 million
Nationally by the end of her term.
Okay, so let's say we're going to be build 3 million more homes. My guess is that it's going to be a federal funding request by the states and or the cities. Okay, so they're going to reach out Washington and say, hey, we're Texas, in Austin, we need permits or we need funding, or developers can reach out for funding to be able to build, let's say, size of Texas, let's say 500,000 of those. So we're going to try to build 500,000 of those just in Texas alone. They might give us half of that. So now we're at 250,000. Wonderful. So now we're at 250,000 houses we can build in Texas. And we don't know how many Austin are going to get. Let's say 50,000 in the Austin area. Okay. So now we're at 50,000 new housing grants. That doesn't change how many houses are going to be built. It accelerates the builders that apply the grant, that get the money to be able to put down and start building. So your Lennars and your DR Hortons that have, they're like, they already have all this land, or DR Horton specifically has all this land in Texas. So if they're able to get free money from the government to build houses, they're just going to build crazy. They're going to start building on all this land. Right now in Austin specifically, we have more inventory than we had since 2012.
Yeah, that was another thing I wanted.
We have so much inventory.
Yeah, like
and
there's
the houses
active
aren't
listings.
moving the same. The thing that moves the houses in Austin, two things. One, the interest rates, because that affects the entire United States. And then the second part is jobs. We had such an influx because the interest rates were low. Job relocation was extremely high. That's what caused so much of an erratic behavior in Austin specifically. Austin was the place to move. Now, jobs have tapered substantially, even though there's growth, tapered substantially. So building more houses might actually be worse for Austin short term. Unless it brings the housing prices down to the point where your teachers, your military, your managers at a department store can purchase a home. Manufacturing plants, workers, people that work for Apple at the Apple campus and in the domain. Like, you got to think about what these people are making, and they would need to pay for a mortgage to be able to live here. That's affordable housing to me.
Yeah, and we still have a step of absorbing inventory that's out there. Like Ian said, there's a ton of inventory still, so it's not necessarily. I mean, it could be a shortage of housing, but there are active listings that you could write an offer on.
I checked.
If you were looking at a property, reach out to JJ or myself. And this is meant to be like a solicitation for our services, but there are so many out there and people that are looking for deals that are missing the boat on an opportunity. We can help you with that. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I actually checked this morning, and there were 14,700 and I want to say 47 homes on the market.
That's more than in Austin.
What's that?
That's more than the number of real estate agents in Austin for the first time.
I think so, yeah.
There's one house per real estate agent. Good.
Basically, I checked a couple weeks ago. I try to check a couple times a month just to see. And we were over the 15,000 mark a couple weeks back. It was at like 15,000, around 400 and something.
Insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And y'all remember during 21 and 22, sometimes it was like we had 2,800 homes on the market.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's absolute insanity. And I'm curious to see a lot of times like where those homes are coming from. Like, what's the reasoning for that? Maybe people just need to cash out, or maybe they're investors that no longer want to be in Texas, or maybe they are folks that lost their job. So, really interesting.
All right. So, how do you think immigration or homelessness will affect Austin proper, based on the policy of the people running for office right now, Trump and Harris? I know this is an interesting
thinking. Hey, too bad you can't hear us thinking. I don't know about you guys. I think, Texas in general, we have so many people that come here from Mexico. We do have a lot of people that migrate from other parts of the world as well. I will say I've lived in and traveled to other places that have a significantly larger immigrant population, though. And I feel like so much of so many of the folks that are coming here are, for the most part, just from other states. Feel free to correct me. I don't know everything, of course. This is just kind of what I'm seeing and what I'm noticing. But for instance, like Florida, there's such a large immigrant population. And they are very hands-on. And when they get here, when they get to Florida, they definitely do want to plant roots and want to start building towards our American dream, which I think is, personally, I think it's a wonderful thing. I don't see that as much here, though. Do you guys work with a bunch of people that have migrated here? Like, I'm actually curious.
I've had a fair share of international clients, but they're generally not people that have immigrated here without sufficient documentation. Let me say it that way. Right now, what I have noticed is, pre-pandemic, it was most people that moved here were directly from another place within Texas. So Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and even Corpus, oddly enough, and Lubbock. Lubbock was to Houston. So those people, like in these different areas, a lot of them would move to Austin. And then it was California, New York, and all these other places, in Chicago, and right. And so that's shifted to being more, like during the pandemic, to being more people from out of state than intrastate on the jobs. But now I think it's returning back to normal. So then the question becomes, if Houston is one of the places that most people move from, how many people end up in Houston that are undocumented immigrants that then relocate to Austin? And why would they move to Austin?
Why wouldn't?
If you're in Houston, where the sales price of a home is lower, and the policies for protecting immigrants is more open in Houston versus in, I don't know about versus in Austin, but is fairly open in Houston, why would you relocate to Austin when the cost of living is higher?
Are we talking about folks?
It's for a job. It's for a job.
Right. Okay. That's what's going to be my follow-up question. If they're documented, if they're coming for.
Well, that's the thing. It isn't, if they're documented or not, it's for, people move for love or money. And in this case, the love was the passion to either escape something or toward hope, to escape a bad situation or toward a future hopeful situation, good or bad. And then it's, how can I make more money? Now, if people do move to Austin, it's because they were offered a job or company, and whether or not the company's paying under the table or whatever, like that's a different conversation. The question is, how does that impact Austin, and how many people are an influx into Austin? It's hard. We can't trace that.
I just don't know that I have enough experience really to speak on it.
Yeah, I would like to see all the stats on immigration in regards to like documented and undocumented, and generally it's hard to call, but job availability, I don't know if this fits in the conversation either. So I don't know if there is a direct connection. Is there a connection with immigration and housing that you're getting at, or?
Yeah, everybody needs a place to live. That impacts Austin
It does.
Tremendously.
So
and
there's
even if it was, let's say it was homeless. We're not even talking about immigration. Let's talk about homeless. But in both cases, everyone needs a place to live. It's either going to be apartments, which we've seen so many show up in Austin, or we've even heard of Austin, the city, buying up hotels to be able to house the homeless population. It's still affecting how Austin real estate is impacted. And I'm not saying positive or negative. I'm saying something that is happening, and it does have an effect on Austin. You need to decide if this is a positive impact or not, and if the political candidates will increase that or decrease it.
Yeah, I'd have to see. I don't know all the immigration stats regarding homelessness. I think generally the Democrats are more. Let's look at a blue state. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think so, but we'll come back. I want to hear your reason for saying that. Yeah.
Some blue cities like or states: Colorado, Denver, Colorado, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever policies are going on there, a lot of people may not like, they might like or be okay with, but that could be a reflection on the Democrats' effect on Austin. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because people that are relocating, people that are in big cities, it's real big cities versus rural areas, right? Because like a lot of big cities, New York,
But
Los
a big
Angeles,
city in a
San
blue state.
Francisco, Chicago, Denver are all blue. Like big cities
Yeah,
are
yeah.
mostly blue,
And
right?
blue
So it's really,
states.
is it a city person or a rural person? That's what you're really arguing, right? Maybe not intentionally, but that's kind of how it shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, but the metro areas are still like I'm still looking at the color of the state as a reflection. If I could, if that
But that's the
correlation.
thing. The color of the state is independent. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter what I think. I think, okay,
I
what
could be
was the
wrong. I'm
point?
just
What
kind
was the
of.
point of the color of the city or the color of the state versus what's happening? Let's go there to housing.
I just think for the homelessness thing too. Also being sensitive to the homeless. I really want to get at mental health, but I understand there's already homeless people here, so we have to address that. But I
Right.
wish.
Well, and we're addressing housing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how does that impact
So
housing here?
I just wish there's like a mental health
Me
precursor.
too.
But
I like that. Yeah, there's a lot of that actually that I feel like falls on the military because so many of these homeless folk are
yes,
veterans, and
yes.
Well,
you see them standing in the street like I'm a veteran, and there's not really a lot of support. So I feel like there should be policies in place to work with the military to help folks with their mental and emotional well-being.
okay.
They can live a normal
Which
life.
candidate has had conversations around military and mental health?
I don't think they have. I mean, if military,
No,
I think it's
they haven't. They
right.
haven't.
But like that doesn't seem like a very difficult initiative. Like I feel
I
like
think something that can be a huge benefit to in real estate, homeless population, in a lot of places across the country, but it's not the thing that gets the clicks.
but I feel like it could. I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, like, if we really actually take some time to think about it,
Yeah.
I think it would be such a good way to unite us as a country
100%.
because essentially these military men and women are going out to serve us. It doesn't
Right.
matter what side you're on.
Yep.
And if they have a whole campaign based around let's support the military so they can support our veterans, I mean, what is more American than that?
And then guess what happens?
Yeah.
They, depending on where, like what their service level is, they might get zero, no down payment. So down payment assistance, if you will, that's already considered as part of our tax dollars. And then might get property taxes based on if, their percent disability. And so now they're helping the local economy because they're buying up the houses and creating small businesses in the area because they've been getting help that they need. Yes, that has absolutely been glossed over by both politicians that I've seen. I haven't seen either one focus on that as part of their campaign.
And mental health is such a trending topic right now. Like it would be brilliant if either party would just hop on it, even if it's just for clicks. I would hope that they would follow through.
Well, you got that both of them, like I said, I showed their net wealth, right? And the real estate portfolios and all that. They're quite a bit disconnected from what's happening down on planet Earth. Right? Like one of them is a billionaire. How many love billionaires? Like show of hands. I'm just kidding. I'm not. but really think about that when it comes to what the policies are affecting us. I'll say average Americans in Austin, Texas, when you have someone who's a billionaire, someone who's a multimillionaire versus someone who's just trying to buy their first house, or a veteran that is currently homeless because they're not getting the mental health service assistance that they need. And they could be in a perfect position to be able to buy a home if they just had the education and the help.
Support. Yeah.
Right. We've talked about a lot of stuff. do we have, I guess I don't want to ask that, but do we have any other potential topic on specifically related to the candidate? If not, I've got one. I'll save one after. I'll save mine for last.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one that I thought was interesting to see what y'all. It was the appreciation and the capital gains taxes, if I read that one properly.
Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. As of right now, you might be subject to capital gains after you sell a house. Like we're looking at, this is why I brought up Kamala's portfolio. You could see she might have bought a house for 2 million, sold it, several bunch of years later for 6 million, something like that, right? That's capital gains, that increase in net worth, right? You could get taxed on the sale, or you could 1031 exchange it. Now, the Harris administration is saying you could get taxed per year on the yearly appreciation and I think this is also for wealthier people, but I think you just got to be careful about where that policy may hit, because we hope it doesn't hit the average person where you pay tax.
What is average? Like there's got to be an income level, but also it's going to hit everybody.
100 million was it? I think 100 million net worth might be the yearly tax. But just the idea of the yearly tax came up and I was like, whoa, that's wild. And then I've heard it's for the $100 million net worth wealthy. And I was like, well, not me. So
first I want to pull up this comment from Darth Bitcoiner, which is a hilarious name. Austin real estate has been overpriced and overhyped for decades. Neither president will be good for Austin real estate. Austin real estate has a long way to drop. Do we disagree with that, or do we agree with that?
Long way to drop. What does that mean?
I think there's some drop.
I think just that we've been inflated a lot, and it'll take a while before we come back down to the normal pricing. I think that's the intent of that comment.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to come down to normal pricing. I'm not sure what normal pricing is. I feel like, so when I moved here in 2012, you could buy a really nice house near town, like near downtown, for like $250,000, and that was a really nice house.
Yeah.
When I came here, I was in like sticker shock reverse because I had come from Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
And homes there were a lot more expensive than they were here. Now it's like significantly the other way around. I'm sure you saw the same thing, Ian. I don't know that price is ever going to drop to, don't know what a normal price is, but yeah.
Aaron said he votes for my 56K connection for president.
Yeah, you need to vote on your policies.
I'm telling you, both Starlink and internet. Oh my gosh, this is insanity. So when it comes to the capital gains tax, I find it interesting that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Tim, actually I don't know about Tim Walz's his real estate holdings, but they have multiple houses and multiple millions of dollars, which I'm not against. I mean, this is a free market society, right? Like I really like that, to be able to just maintain a standard of living that we're used to. Some of us are used to. So I do like that is possible. There's a whole lot more to it. Like, are people from out of the country buying and then not living here and then charging, crazy for rent? There's so much more to that taxation. And then it's, are the tax incentives provided to people that have over $100 million in their portfolio? Then it goes to, are these people that are, multiple hundreds of millionaires or billionaires providing 10,000 more jobs in the local economy? Because that's the part that a lot of people miss, right? So one thing that I wanted to talk about was like Elon Musk. He's moved all of his crap from California to Austin. I say crap. I do like Tesla. I have multiple Tesla vehicles. I like what they've done to push the electric vehicle industry forward, and some changes in the world, and SpaceX next week, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I bring this up because no matter what you think about Elon Musk, no matter what you think about him, how many lives has he positively impacted, so much so that they were able to buy houses or start business, or their partners, or they start businesses or side hustles or whatever in Austin, Texas, whether they relocated or they already lived here. If they didn't have a formal education, but were still able to get a job paying, $50,000 to $100,000 a year, what does that do for the local economy? Despite him being multiples of billionaire and still paying more taxes than any human on the planet, even though it might not seem people, he still has more than he needs. Get what he needs. What has he done for the local economy? Right? Like that is such a big conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know which incumbent, is that the right word? I don't know which person that's running for current office would be better for the local economy based on those sorts of things. Because I don't want to put all my eggs in Elon's basket. I don't, right? But we also have Michael Dell, right? We also have everything that Apple's doing in Austin. We also have Samsung. We have all these other companies that are here, all these chip manufacturing companies, Amazon and Bezos. We have so much here that is impacting Austin. And the politics, unfortunately, even though they're national, can have a pretty drastic impact on the local economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that concept could be considered trickle-down economics.
Yes.
Right? Where the billionaire trickles down enough economy. But the fallacy is checking if enough trickles down.
Yes.
Because it might not trickle all the way down, or it might be way thinned out. But generally, I mean, my tech friends seem to be doing okay. But I don't know how much needs to trickle down or who at the top has what.
Yeah, I think it depends on what level. When you say tech friends, right?
Right.
I would reach out okay, this is for anybody who's watching this episode or watching the shorts or whatever. If you have people in tech in Austin, what are they hearing?
Yeah, we would like to hear from y'all. This is just like three realtors just.
And it's the same thing, because Austin, you got to realize Austin isn't only tech. We did tech growth spurt, but we also have education sector. We have the healthcare sector, right? We have manufacturing sector. We have agricultural sector. I want to hear from the other sectors, right? Of people that are in Austin, people that are in crypto still, like Darth Bitcoiner. You still in crypto, man? Like startup culture. The Harris administration has talked about the thing they want to do to help assist small businesses in growing. But if all the small business owners had to leverage or build their business based on their real estate assets first, what? Like now they're getting capital gains tax. Like it's all a ripple effect or trickle down economics, as JJ would say. There's so much more, layers upon layers, plans within plans.
Is that a Drake lyric?
No, I doubt that it was his original lyric. I think it was from like a Game of Thrones or something like that. One of the series. That's funny though. Probably
asking for myself.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, final thoughts, Daphne or JJ?
I think for we're talking about small business, we're talking about startups, we're talking about real estate. I think the average real estate investor does generally benefit from Republican policies. But again, I get it. Like Democrats have a lot of social policies that are also beneficial. And again, this is real estate chatter, so I get it. But that's everything we talked about summed up.
Definitely.
Sorry, I'm getting all these text messages right now. I'm flying out to Colorado tomorrow to teach a class, and it's like, we need you. It's like, okay, calm down. We're in a live podcast talking about things that have impact Austin and their jobs. Ironically, from a small, one of them was from a small business owner. I'm going to ask him the question, and I'm going to report back on our next Real Estate Lab podcast. Hey, you're a small business owner. You own 7 shops that wrap vehicles. Okay.
Oh.
Which presidential candidate would be better for your business and real estate? I'm just going to leave it at that and see how he responds. I'll report back in 2 weeks.
I will say generally too, because of what we're used to, obviously reach out to us about benefiting from real estate in general. Like I don't want the politics to cloud it up too much, but we could all talk about this in more detail to see what fits you. Like you're a first time home buyer, you might like the Kamala $25,000 incentive. Like what would that look like if that
I'm also
right?
You might also like renting forever too.
Yeah. This is very much a side note. We don't have to go down this road, but I think something to think about. Maybe we can talk about it next time. That $25,000 incentive, what is that tied to? Because, for instance, government grants, I think the T-Shack loans, the zero down,
whatever, 6,000, yeah.
Yeah. So God, I haven't done one of those like in 8 years, but I believe when you get a higher interest rate and then like you don't have to pay it back with certain stipulations.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious, like what is actually tied to the $25,000? We don't have to answer right now, but it is something I think we should just kind of ponder.
We can all talk about it. Call us.
The last thing I just wanted to throw in, which kind of aligns with that, is, as I remember, there are only 13 states in the United States of America that do not pay a sales tax on real estate transactions. Texas being one of them. So we don't charge an additional 1% on the buy and the sell side when you sell a house or you buy a house. Okay. Where in Illinois, for example, where I'm originally from, Chicago, if you sold a house, you paid 1% tax. If you buy a house, you pay 1% tax. So now you're already removing 2% from the transaction, and that does not have anything to do with your state employment tax as well, right? Like there's so many other things that are factored in here, and so you have to think this level when you're talking about where you're going to live and in what state. Specifically Austin, Texas, how does the income tax versus the sales tax versus the property tax versus the job market, these are all so many variables that are related to it, and each candidate will have a very different impact on all of those things, 100%. Even in Austin.
That's a lot. Sorry, I'm thinking about the 1% tax in Michigan. That's a
lot of money. Right? You can't be arguing about real estate agent commissions if you're already paying 2% tax. You don't even know it. You don't even know it.
Well, gosh darn it. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, y'all. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Estate Lab. We appreciate you as always, even our 56K connections. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Let us know in the comments what you think would be a wonderful next episode or future episodes. We'll probably get Linda on here soon, and you know why, right, Daphne? Right, Jay? What's happening tomorrow?
Woo! Rate drops, maybe.
Well, conversation about whether they're gonna cut what banks pay to borrow from each other.
I feel like they're teasing people. Everyone's expecting the government to be like 2% interest rates when it's going to go down like a quarter of a point. It's not really going to make money.
I think it's already been absorbed, but it will impact things in the future, right? I've seen 5% rates last week.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all so much. We appreciate you. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your next 2 weeks, and we're all here for you. Thank you again. See ya.